What is going on, everybody? My name is John Solo, and today some magic is happening on this channel because we are actually going to talk about Harry Potter. I know that we don't normally talk about anything that isn't a Disney property on this channel. I like to keep my content focused on Disney, Pixar, and Star Wars. But Harry Potter was a huge part of my childhood, and this theory was just too good to skip, so we're talking Harry Potter today. So the other day, I was browsing one of my favorite new subreddits called Movie Details. It's essentially just a place where people post obscure details and Easter eggs they find in their favorite movies. I ended up finding a really interesting submission regarding Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, specifically the scene where Neville receives his Rememberall.
Hey look, Neville's got a Rememberall.
I've read about those. When the smoke turns red, it means you've forgotten something.
The only problem is, I can't remember what I've forgotten.
It's a pretty iconic scene and it contains one of Neville's most quoted lines, "I can't remember what I've forgotten." But what if I told you that we actually know what Neville forgot? Well, technically we don't know, which is why this is a fan theory, but we have a pretty good idea. Let's watch the scene over again. Do you notice anything different between Neville and his fellow first years sitting around him? How about the fact that he's the only one not wearing his robes? Could his robes be what he's forgotten? That's what Reddit user ClutchPlayer08 is proposing, and I'll admit, I think it sounds pretty reasonable. There were some fans arguing against this idea because if you look in the background, you can see a couple of other students also not wearing their robes, but my counter argument to this can be found in the very next scene. The first years are at their first ever flying lesson. You'll notice that every single one of them is now wearing a robe, including Neville. So in my opinion, it's a pretty reasonable assumption that his robes are what he forgot. He doesn't have them in the scene immediately before the flying lesson. He's told he forgot something, and in the flying lesson, he's wearing them. Not to mention, if you're going to be riding on a broomstick with the wind whipping you in the face, of course you're going to want to wear some robes to keep you somewhat warm. So it's a logical thing to be reminded about. Sidebar, I'm not exactly sure how Rememberalls work, but if this theory is actually true, it's almost too perfect that the Rememberall his grandma sent him is reminding him to put a coat on before he goes outside, because that's exactly what a grandma would want to remind you about. You think maybe his grandma bewitched it with some grandma love to remind him about certain things? This actually isn't where the theory ends though. There's one more connection that I want to suggest, and it's one that I came up with myself, so I'm especially eager to hear what you guys think about it. Those of you who remember the flying scene might remember that Neville loses control of his broomstick pretty much immediately after mounting it. He goes on quite the ride before his robes catch on a statue at the top of the castle and he gets yanked off. His ropes end up ripping, he falls and gets caught again, and then he lands on the ground breaking his wrist. This definitely isn't the ideal ending for anyone on their first broomstick ride, but considering how berserk his broom went, I'd say he got off pretty lucky. The reason I bring this up is because if Neville wasn't wearing his robes, he wouldn't have gotten yanked off the broomstick. If he wasn't yanked off, he might have ended up crashing into something and sustained even more serious injuries or possibly even died. So in a sense, Gran saved Neville's life by sending him that Rememberall. She also indirectly started Harry's career as the Gryffindor Seeker. Lady knew what she was doing. So now it's time for me to ask, what do you guys think of this theory? Do you agree that Neville forgot his robes and that the Rememberall indirectly saved his life? Let me know by hitting that like button or commenting down below. Also, I want to ask, do you guys want more diverse content on this channel? I'm not talking anything too outside the box, but I'm also not opposed to the idea of expanding to include some Harry Potter and, say, Marvel theories, if that's what you guys want. Just let me know in a comment. Also consider subscribing and turning notifications on for more videos about your favorite childhood movies. Also follow me on social media where I also post these videos since YouTube can't be trusted. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is John Solo, and I'll see you next time.